Welcome to Roundabout Oxford, a podcast from the University of Mississippi Libraries.
This is Brian Corrigan, a library specialist in continuing resources and acquisitions at the J.D. Williams Library. In this episode, I speak with photographer Judy Cox Andrews and Roundabout Oxford's own Joe Moody about the Charlie Cox Collection of glass plate photographs from the early 1900s. We also preview their upcoming South Talk and Joe's new exhibit of photos from the collection at Barnard Observatory.
I'm Judy Cox Andrews from Ashland, Mississippi. At least that's where I grew up. Charlie Cox was my grandfather on my father's side, and they lived on Liberty Road in Benton County, and I grew up there on that same road near what is now Snow Lake Shores. I lived in Meridian, Mississippi for about 31 years, and I had a photography studio there and moved to Oxford in 2007.
I'm Joe Moody. I'm the audiovisual librarian here at Special Collections and assistant professor. I just started my job pretty much about a year ago, and I was working at the front desk at Special Collections, and Judy Cox Andrews came in to donate some glass plate negatives. And I saw these and I said, oh, wow, these are amazing. I want to devote my time to this. And there was close to 1,000 glass plate negatives. And so that's what started this project. And I started looking into these images. And I said, wow, these are really interesting. One of the more interesting things about this collection is that it portrays the entire community. There's pictures of everyone within the community. And during that time period, you often see photography only for the most affluent in society and things like that. No, these pictures were of everyone. African American, white, Native American, people working, the landscape photographs. So you get a sense of the community. You get a sense of Ashland and Benton County.
People had themselves photographed with things that were most valuable to them. Not everybody had a pocket watch. So there were some that feature a pocket watch. I guess everybody had a hunting dog. And so many were pictured with their dogs. Women were often pictured with their cats. Umbrellas were in many of the photographs as props. Quilts were sometimes used as backgrounds. They seemed to think it was funny or amusing for women to put on the man's hat. And there's one with two women dressed as men. One of the men, I think, had on two hats. He also had a snake hanging on his neck.
Also, you see a lot of images of people just having fun. You can tell that they're trying to make each other laugh and just kind of having a good time. But there's also images of people that you can see that times were hard. So I kind of feel like you get a little bit of everything.
I had known that the negatives existed for a number of years, but they were stored in an attic that had a tin roof. It could only be accessed with a ladder. And so my brother went up into the attic, and they're very heavy, the negatives are. And so he passed them down to me. That was in the early 80s. And at that time, we had a 4x5 enlarger. So we could print anything 4x5 or smaller. But I was busy making a living as a photographer. So I was dealing with my own negatives, and it would be expensive to do that with no market for it. Also, the negatives were dirty. Dirt daubers had built their nest on some of them, on the boxes and things like that. And not knowing any better, not having Google to find out, I cleaned some of them with water. Not a good idea. And just stored them from the early 80s to the last 3 or 4 years, actually longer than that. And I started working with them because digital was so much easier. I did not know how to convert them exactly, but went to Home Depot and got a ceiling light fixture. It was LED, and I knew I needed to backlight the negatives, and so I set up an enlarger chassis so that I could mount my camera on it. And so I began copying the negatives in that way. But I knew that it could be done better. And so that was one of the reasons I turned to the university.
Can you kind of talk about class negatives as a format and like the challenges that you faced and how you like overcame those challenges?
Sure. I emailed the Library of Congress. Also, I went to New York City. I went to the Municipal Archives. Also, New York University's digitization in their library were super nice and wanted to help. However, their equipment was extremely expensive equipment, and I had to be inventive. I noticed that they had glass that was raised up above the light board. I ordered a light board, this like German light board that they were using that's supposed to be really good. I had an overhead camera, that we use in the traditional way, but I learned that you really need to raise it off the light board so that you don't have any problems with light. So I just took a cardboard box and just, cut out the top, and it works fine. I had a piece of glass and everything, and I was able to raise them off of the light board. It took me a while to really get the settings right on the camera so that I could get the perfect image. I ran it through Lightroom and also Photoshop, and it should be up on our digital repository, eGrove, pretty soon. So this whole process, it took about a year. It's taken about a year. So I mean, it's been a long process, but it's been really rewarding. So Benton County has been fabulous throughout all of this. They're in the first floor of the courthouse in downtown Ashland. They have a lot of Judy's images printed there. And also what they've been doing is they've been connecting these images with names through like the relatives and different people.
One thing that I discovered was that I was related to many of those people. I knew families of most of the people who were in the photographs.
So these photos were taken by your grandfather, Charlie Cox,
Yes.
in the early 1900s. I know that you said you'd never met him, but can you tell us a little bit about who he was?
He was, I believe, a zany sort of person. He always loved to piddle and to discover new things and try new things. He was a gunsmith and made gun stocks from walnut mostly. If you looked at the gun, it looked like that metal was born in the walnut. He just liked to, he was an inventor in a way, or you might say improviser. In my opinion, all farmers and photographers are improvisers. If the lighting is not the way they want it, then they set up some way to correct it. And same with farmers. If they don't have what they need, they make up something that'll do the job. he liked to entertain his children by dressing up and doing skits. I found out from cousins that one of his ambitions was to go work in plays and things like that.
Sounds like he could have been a film director.
Yes, absolutely. All of his images were done with natural light. And so they were done outside. He had an elaborate background, painted background, that had an ornate staircase with carpet and drapes. And in some cases, he didn't crop very well. And so there would be a cow coming out from the back of the ornate background.
Did he order that like specially made from somewhere? Do you know the history of that backdrop?
I don't, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but I had that backdrop, and it was so dirty that I decided to wash it. Big mistake. It was the fabric, of course, was muslin. It was a heavy fabric, and of course it was in black and white also, because that's all you needed at that time.
I'm doing an exhibit of 25 of the images printed, and they will be at the Gammill Gallery starting September 11th. I think there will be a few extra photos of Charlie Cox, kind of introducing him as well. And we are giving a South talk through the Center for Southern Studies. And that is on September 17th.
Joe Moody and Judy Cox Andrews, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Roundabout Oxford is created by Brian Corrigan, Carmen Sanchez Garcia, Joe Moody, Lauren Rogers, and Alex Watson, with musical contributions from Brian Corrigan and Gail Herrera.